Major Kira takes a trip to the Junkata Nebula. Trevian has some herbs that are to die for. And the Defiant crew visits a planet of mysterious humans. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
Very special guest here, Dr. MOHAMED NOOR.
Hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and by the way, that was a runabout, not the Defiant. I realized that as I was reading it. It was the runabout, I don't know which one. We are doing a review of Deep Space Nine's Season 4, The Quickening, directed by René Auberjonois and written by Naren Shanker.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who that is, but written by.
I think he was a science advisor. He was a science advisor at the end of TNG, I think. Like before Andre Bormanis came on, I think he was a science advisor and then transitioned to being a writer, if I remember correctly.
Good knowledge. Oh, okay. By the way, everybody at home, Dr. MOHAMED NOOR is a science advisor for Star Trek, so he knows a little something about science advisors and their lineage. Did they make you take a class beforehand, like of all of them, to like learn them all?
No, and my role is a little different in the sense that I'm not on retainer like Dr. Aaron McDonald is right now. I just occasionally do it on contract. So I like to say she's the sheriff of science, and I'm just somebody who gets deputized sometimes.
Nice.
I'm
just looking up Naren real quick just to see. Okay, so he did write an episode of Voyager called Heroes and Demons. He wrote or was story editor in several Next Generation episodes as well.
It's The Expanse.
And 2 episodes of Deep Space Nine, Farscape, The Outer Limits. Wow, lots of good stuff. For All Mankind and The Expanse. Yeah, you're right.
What was the other Deep Space Nine episode?
Babel.
First season.
Yeah.
Babel. Okay. Also, very quickly, we do want to, before we get started, we do want to give a hearty shout out to Mr. Immo Radke out in northwestern Germany. He provided us with the script, the shooting schedule, and the outline for this episode, which had changed quite a bit. Mohammed was noting before we hit record. So that was really cool. We would have loved to have him on the show, but he's out in Germany where it's midnight and he's celebrating Easter with his family and doesn't have his computer and all that. Cool. But anyway, how you guys doing?
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Good job. I like the clever herbs to die for intro.
I'm glad you like that one. What was clever about it?
Your whole delivery. I thought it was. I thought the wording was well done.
Thank you.
It was good. It was good.
Thank you. We also did that for Immo because we love Immo. He was our very first associate producer on our show. Really good guy. He's also working on a website for us. So Immo, that joke was for you, and Cirroc.
Immo's got the crazy backdrop special effects.
Yeah, remember that?
Right? Yeah.
Oh yeah. I vaguely remember this.
Yeah, things like fading in and out, and you can energize.
Like Black Alert. Yeah,
Black Alert. That's yeah.
Yeah, I like that. So shout out to Black Alert.
And thank you very much, Dr. MOHAMED NOOR, for joining us for this episode. We are going to need you in this episode very much because there was a lot of this episode that just kind of went over my head. I was like, is that real science? Is it fakey science? Do I even know what these words mean? So hopefully you can answer those questions.
We talk about it.
I don't know about you guys, but one of the first things that kind of stuck out to me and just made me once again say, wow, this is such a coincidence, is that the topics that we're watching in this episode are exactly what we watch in the headlines with vaccines and viruses.
Yeah.
And it's just DS9 does it again. They find a way, to just be like literally current.
There was even a line at the end where he said, it's not a cure, it's a vaccine. The difficult part will be getting people to take it.
Exactly.
I
I was like, I mean, somebody needs to do a PSA and just clip all of our episodes, and then that's enough to get it done.
That'll get you through.
Yeah, it was timely for the time too, not on the vaccine front, but at the time this was coming out, Kevorkian, the doctor of death, was helping with all those assisted suicides, and they were having all those trials, for him and stuff like that. So it was very timely at the time, not on the vaccine side, but on the assisted suicide aspect.
I remember that. I remember that name being passed around, Dr. Jack Kevorkian, and I guess what he was doing was just helping people to pass on.
Yeah, he'd set them up. Like, he wouldn't actually inject them, but he would set them up with everything. Like, here, you hit this button. And therefore, he was like, I didn't do it. They hit the button.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yeah. I wrote that down in my notes too, Mohammed, as well, that Kevorkian, because he was a big deal at that time, because it was actually the idea of whether somebody had the right to end their life was, the assisted suicide type of argument that was being brought up at the time was heavy in the discussion, in the popular culture. So that was something we were all talking about at the time.
Yep.
So when I watched this episode, it made me, obviously, just like you, it kind of reminded me of that idea of, and then even in this episode, Bashir kind of comes to the conclusion, like, well, it is the right thing to do. It is okay that he's doing this, even though he's trying to find the cure and he's trying to find a way. When he initially gives up, he kind of says, what else is there to do in the initial give up?
Yeah, his reaction at first was very striking. He was so strongly against it. It was like, it's not that crazy. I mean, if there's no hope, I mean, why? Yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah,
how perceptions have changed over the last 25 years.
Yeah, and the other thing that they introduced in this episode were the idea of the preparation for the death, right? Like, the woman in this episode, she had her food saved up. She was basically going to have a feast, a party, of some sort, right? And it was like a birthday party, but a death day party.
Celebration, yeah.
Yeah, and be around your loved ones, eat well, and then check out. And so the idea, I thought, was a very interesting idea for them to bring up and talk about, because it is something where you kind of may be on the fence. Well, I don't think it's right to kill people, but then at the same time, if somebody is in tremendous amount of pain,
exactly,
and they're suffering to such a degree, then isn't that kind of the humane thing to do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you see an animal that's been hit by a car or something, you're kind of supposed to take it out of its misery and just
run it over
kill
again.
It, right?
Oh. I've been that guy trying to save the animals that I see hit on the road, and they never make it to the vet. Like, you put them in your back seat or something. You try, yeah.
So I mean, if something is mortally wounded, and it's the most humane thing to do is to, and we've seen this in movies too, where it's like two soldiers are out in the field, one guy's and he's basically asking his friend to take him out.
Don't make me go through this.
Yeah, please help me out. And so the idea is, I think, is an ancient one. I think it'll always be up for debate on what the right thing to do is, and of course, you add religion into it, and that's a whole other aspect. But just whether it is right or wrong to take your own life, if you're in that kind of pain and you're facing imminent death, anyways.
Well, it seems to fall under the category of free will, right? I would think. I mean, if you have free will,
I think in Kevorkian's case, I think they tried this particular case out in front of the courts
multiple times.
Yes, and I believe that he was actually kind of vindicated, or he basically won the argument that it was all right for him to get to do that. He wasn't charged with murder, I don't think.
I don't think so. I don't remember that happening. Yeah.
I don't think so.
Man, I wish I knew more about this case. It sounds so interesting. It sounds like
there were multiple.
Just say, like, if I didn't pull the trigger or if I didn't push the button, then I can't be charged with murder. These other people, this is what they wanted to do, and I wanted to make a bunch of money, so we both did it.
And there was a line in this episode where the doctor, what was the doctor's name?
Trevian.
Trevian. And it was funny because sometimes it sounded like Julian. For 1 second, I had to look and I was like, did he call for Julian or Travian? You know, but when the person was calling for Travian and he kind of pushed Julian to the side and said, "You have to let me."
Yeah, she's asking for me.
She's asking for me, right?
Yeah.
So in the Kevorkian case, it's also the similar thing. People were asking for him. He wasn't just going around saying, "Hey, who wants to die? I got a bunch of drugs."
No, that's right.
People were reaching out and saying, "Please," and calling him. He's going and traveling to their residence.
They knew what they were getting, and they were asking for it, like you said. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now I did let's start at the beginning here.
Sure.
First of all, we had a fun Quarks commercial, which was nice, and Worf gets I think this is the second episode in a row with Worf's prune juice being featured. He said he had that singing Quarks mug, which would have been funny to see him trying to drink.
What if he spilled it the first time it started singing?
But that was Odo's only scene, I believe, because he was directing. That was a great episode for him to direct. Either he or Avery could have directed that episode because they were both out of it mostly. I don't know if you guys made any director's notes there.
Yeah, the only note I had was the come to Quarks mug, which I thought was pretty interesting because what it did was it actually addressed advertising and commercials and advertising, which is a theme that I don't think Star Trek deals with it much because they don't deal heavily in money and in the world of finances as much. And especially not in advertising, even though advertising is what runs Hollywood, essentially, right? It runs the industry. It runs television, that's for sure. So I thought it's interesting that it does this kind of play, this satire on advertising. It's very brief. It's small. And the other thing I thought was interesting is I had never seen, and I don't know if you guys have ever seen this, but somebody at a convention with one of those.
Oh, I was going to ask that. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. Have you guys seen that? I haven't ever seen that.
Did it actually make the sound too when you tilted it?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I've never seen it.
Oh, I've not seen it. Oh, sorry.
I have not seen it. And as many times as people do bring up all kinds of things, and you see, I mean, the fans are amazing about the details that the levels of extremes that they're willing to go through to get the details right. But I haven't seen anybody reproduce a singing Quarks mug. And if they did, I think I would get one.
It would have to have a switch, though, because if it kept doing it that way,
it has to have a switch.
That's the beauty of it. There's no switch. You would instantly regret.
You regret it with every sip of prune juice.
Yeah.
I had a bottle opener, little bottle opener, where every time you did it, this little speaker would have the call, like the radio call of when Barry Bonds hit this big home run, 20 years ago or whatever it was. And so every time you go like this, you'd be like, he hits it high, he hits it deep. And then you're like, yeah, this is cool. But let me tell you, about a year or two ago, it broke and it just was on a loop.
Oh, gosh.
It's that 10, 12-second loop. And at first, it's kind of cool. But so I can only imagine that a Quarks thing would be a little silly, still worth doing. So if somebody out there, please do it and show it to us at a convention.
Oh, man, it would be fantastic. Come to Quarks. And that would have been the perfect souvenir to sell at Quarks Bar at the Vegas experience, right?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect. I'm sure they would have sold out on those right away.
Totally. It doesn't seem like it should be that hard to make. It's not like it's technologically difficult. That would be.
It's just on a tilt.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Just on a tilt. Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the light. That's the light stuff of it. That was the.
That's the only B plot. Yeah.
Yeah, that was
the only B plot.
It just opened on that, and they never revisited.
I have a question for you guys. And where did they film this alien planet?
Good question.
I know Ryan knows.
I don't know if I do know.
Because my guess was Vasquez. I wrote Vasquez rocks question mark.
What I said was I wrote in my notes that it just looks like, I was like, they go to a planet that looks just like the LA hills. Wow, what a deal.
Amazing.
And all of the aliens look like humans. They don't even have like a thing on their forehead like most aliens or a line here painted on. They're just like, dude,
just got the disease.
That's the season finale's coming up in a couple episodes. We need to trim the budget a little bit, because the big episode's coming soon. That's how it's got to work.
I actually, when I was first watching this, I thought this was a zombie. I thought there was a zombie apocalypse type of episode, right? Where there were the normal humans, and then there were these ones that were bitten by the zombie bug or whatever, and were breaking out. But it turned out they all had that thing. But I did think,
born with it even too, aside from the last baby.
Yeah, but originally I thought, this is like DS9's little zombie apocalypse type scenario.
Yeah, so as Mohammed started to say, he said, maybe they're born with it. Maybe it's the Quickening. Okay.
Like the Maybelline reference.
Whoops.
Don't worry.
That born with it thing actually makes it a little bit funny in terms of some of the science, but we'll get to that later.
That's the important stuff. Real quick though, there were some things that I wish they had incorporated. Like I couldn't help but think that since a week had gone by before Major Kira comes back to pick them up, and 2 more weeks at least went by after that, right? So Bashir presumably is gone for a month. I thought it would be cool if the next episode of Deep Space Nine had Bashir, Kira, and Dax not in the episode, and then towards the end, like Dax and Kira come back, but Bashir is not. And so it kind of showed what happened in Deep Space Nine for the previous month. But here's my question. Why would Kira go hang out in a nebula for a week and wait for them? That sounds. I
was wondering about that too. I wasn't sure if
just go home.
I wasn't sure she was trying to hide to be nearby in case something went. I was wondering about that too. That seemed odd. Like, you're really going to hang out for a week just in that little shuttle?
He said, "Come back in a week," and she's like, "Okay, I'll just go sit in a shuttle in a nebula for a week. Just go home, man."
What's she doing? Like reading?
I don't know.
She's redecorating the interior space of this runabout.
And it was just a runabout. Yeah, it's just a room. Anyway.
But I have a question, because this is something that kind of bothers me, and maybe it's like you can tell me the science behind it. Why don't they just beam to wherever they need to go to instead of always taking a ship somewhere and then beaming from the ship?
So what they've said is that the transporters have some limited range. I mean, that's what they've said in the past. I remember this coming up more directly in Enterprise when they brought like the guy who like invented the transporter, and there was some limited range to it. So I think that's the issue there. But yeah, I mean, in principle, it doesn't seem like that should. It seems like that should have improved between Enterprise and Deep Space Nine, since that's 100 some years later.
We need a range extender for this.
Yeah, right. Get an antenna.
And then there's always an episode where they do solve that issue for the episode, and then they forget the technology for the next episode.
Yeah, I guess in the reboot Star Trek movie, didn't they do that where Kirk and Scotty beamed onto the Enterprise while it was at warp?
Yeah.
Oh, they beamed it while it was on warp.
Yeah, they beamed from some planet onto the Enterprise, while it was at warp. So, but that was a reboot movie, so Kelvin timeline as opposed to prime timeline.
That's true, different technology. Man. But I feel like that was also done in a Star Trek episode, and I can't remember which one. But they've done all kinds of stuff with transporters. They've transported Barclay holding a giant worm back or something. They've done all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah, and I know they've done time. They've gone through time through transporters at some point, right?
Yeah. They sent that Romulan and Voyager through a wormhole into into Voyager on the other side, and that was also through time too. Come to think of it.
But yeah, so that's just my overall. It's like, well, instead of sending a runabout to go pick up the people or waiting for him on the surface, why don't you just go back to DS9 and just when he's ready, just beam him back? But obviously, you answered my question by there's only so much range.
Yeah, that is far away, and then through the wormhole and everything. But we do have to take our quick break here. But Mohammed might be able to guess which episode this reminded me of a different series. A different series had a similar kind of episode, kind of. We'll talk about that and, everything else. We'll be right back on The Seventh Rule.